or text on the phone while driving, unless it's a hands-free device.
From both of us, the entire Camel Country 1079 family and the husband and wife law team.
All right.
Good morning, guys. Welcome back to the channel. We're doing some more Tail of the Dragon prep, and as you guys know, I'm coming from Arizona. It is a long drive, and we ran into some problems on the S2000. I'll explain it when we get to the shop, and I will show you, but I think you know what we're getting at the shop now. So essentially, to speed you up to, get you up to speed, I think I mentioned it in one of my last videos. I'm prepping for Tail of the Dragon for this long road trip I'm taking the S2000 on. I'm in Arizona, Tail of the Dragon's Tennessee, North Carolina border. So I put some new tires on. We ended up going with some Hankook Ventus RS4s, both for the decent grip, but the life out of them. And, so put those on. Went to put my wheels on, noticed that I had a fat crack in one of my rotors. I was just running some drilled and slotted, was trying those out for the track earlier in the year when I was tracking. Turns out fat crack, so changed those out, and I already threw them away, so I don't have them. But put these on, and then went to bolt the caliper up, and then the threads started pulling out for no reason, even though I wasn't over torquing them. I think what had happened is this car was tracked before I got it, and then I've been tracking it. So I think maybe heat cycling got to the threads on the caliper. So I don't trust buying used components like that, especially for something like that. OEM was almost $600 a piece from Honda Parts Now for a caliper, and then the Rock Auto stuff I just don't necessarily trust when I abuse the car like I do for something like that. So in the meantime, I ended up going with this freaking really dope looking Wilwood big brake kit. Now, I have a buddy out here that also tracks his S2000. He happens to have wholesale accounts with a lot of shops or a lot of companies. Wilwood happens to be one of them. So when I was messaging him, because I went through a whole bunch of people, I went through Fast Brakes, Division Motorsports, Blade Sports. Nobody had anything that was, worth the money to me, because I didn't want the spoon brakes and whatever, because just OEM stuff. I didn't want to pay almost $2,000 for OEM quality. So I went with this. So he hooked it up with a really good price. So now this is the Wilwood. I want to say it's the super narrow light 6R kit, or the narrow super light 6R kit, vice versa, whatever. And basically, yeah, we got these fat 6-piston calipers that look beautiful in that red. Then we got these big O 12.88 inch 2-piece rotors. So got the billet top hats here. We have the brake lines. This is the hardware. This was in this, but I think the box tore, so they put it in the bag. Now, something you'll notice before I get into this, I want to show you guys that these bolts have little holes in the top. Some do, some don't, depending on what kit you run. I just did a big brake kit on my buddy's FK8. His did not require this, but this kit does. These bolts have holes in them for safety wire. So it is in the instructions. I'll show you that when we get to that point, but you're going to need to get some safety wire. This kit recommends 32,000s. So I got stainless steel safety wire as well as safety wire pliers. You don't technically need these, but they were $10 at Harbor Freight, so I figured I've never safety wired before, so it's probably worth it to have those, make the job a little bit easier. And then you also do need red thread locker in the 271. So that's supposed to help, because obviously these get bolted together. You do not want these things falling apart on you, as well as the caliper bracket bolts. So they also give you the hardware to mount the caliper shims, or the bracket itself, which would be these guys. And there is different size shims in there based off of thickness, and the instructions tell you all that. So we're just going to go through this, and then these are the fittings for the brake lines. I believe these ones must go to the chassis, and then these ones I believe go into the caliper. But yeah, so let's just kind of get started. Oh yeah, brake pads right here. So this is the complete front kit. Now this kit, part of the reason I went with this over the Stop Tech, other than the price, is this kit is also functional with the factory brake proportioning in terms of like master cylinder and ABS, as well as I think just those two things. But either way, really solid kit. And yeah, I'm excited, so let's get this thing put on. First things first, obviously the car's already up in the air, got the wheels off, so I'm just going to finish pulling these calipers off really quick, get these rotors off, and we can, actually first things first, I got to make sure this clears. It should clear my wheels just fine, but this kit, again, being pretty big, it requires at least a 17-inch wheel. Now, AP2 stock wheels, they are 17-inch, but the AP1, which is what mine is, came with 16s, but I do have these Enkis on here. They're 17.9 plus 40. Now, the one forum post I did find about a guy running the 13-inch kit, which I think is essentially what I have, was saying that 04 AP1, AP2 V1 wheels he had to run a 3mm spacer to fit, and those are, I want to say 17756 or 53, I believe. So being that I'm a 40 offset, I should have plenty of clearance. So we're going to get this stuff off. We're going to mock up the caliper before we even begin to tighten anything down and make sure a wheel fits. Should also mention that you're going to need an inch-pound torque wrench to torque the rotors with. So I had to go buy that as well because I only had foot-pound ones that didn't go low enough. So yeah, inch-pound torque wrench. Test fit is super successful. That looks so good, and we got plenty of space, dude. You can see that up there. I'm not even worried in the slightest. If it'll focus up in there, maybe. There we go. Yeah, all that space. So I want to note that, or make note that these rotors, the hardware is a 12.8 millimeters. So you're gonna need a 12.8 mil socket to torque these. For now, for test fitting purposes, I just got my 12.8 mil wrench. But I do have my buddy that's going to come help me finish installing this kit, and he has the actual socket. But yeah, at least clearance wise we're good. It looks like I'm gonna have to trim the brake dust shield a little bit, so I'll figure that out here in a moment. In the meantime, I'm gonna try and bolt these wheels down all the way and kind of see what happens. Alright, so the next big thing we got to do is I noticed that while I was trying to put this on, the caliper was not centered by any means in the rotor. So the extra bolts, or the extra zinc coated washers that come in this kit right here, these are, I just measured them with my caliper gauges, 30 thousandths thick each, and the instructions say to start with one on each bolt on this bracket that's right here. So I'm going to take these rotor screws out and I'm going to put one of these on, and we're just going to try and get this caliper centered up. And you can kind of know when you're there because the front of the caliper has, you know, the pad slots right here. You want the rotor to be resting basically as perfectly as you can get it in this middle area right here. So we're going to try and do that. A little hard to see without turning the wheel, but this is with the 1/30,000th shim, so you can kind of see if I can zoom out here enough. You can see that it's not centered totally in that area, so we need to add another shim or two. And if you didn't see what I was doing, the shim goes between the bracket and the knuckle because you're spacing the upright, is what they call it, where the studs are here that your caliper is mounting to. You're spacing that away from the wheel knuckle. So that's where the shims go, is in between these two. Finally got it shimmed correctly. Now the only concern is I don't think I have enough to shim the other side with these other shims. You know, I do have a bunch of washers and such, and that's essentially all they are, but yeah, kind of concerning, only in the sense that I don't know why. Maybe it's just a really loose tolerance for the machining, but it is at least finally centered on this side. So you can kind of see it up there. It's like right in the middle. I got the pads test fit now. I may have to shim the bracket out just a tiny bit. Now the bracket again does come with its own shims. That's what these guys are for. So I'll probably put one on each one because we're just super close. Now obviously what you're wanting to use is the entire pad. So you can see that one is pretty good, but I can kind of see I got a very light lip over here on the left side. So I'm going to shim it just a little bit. But actually, you know, no, I think I'm good because I forgot this is just still resting on here. So, you know, I think we're good actually. Yeah, so in that case, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to wait for my buddy to get here, and then we should be good. In the meantime, I'm going to go get the other caliper off and do the same thing over there. Just, you know, hand tighten the rotor with the 2 screws and put the caliper on that side, try and shim it out. One more thing to note. Now the rotor isn't fully seated, but when it is, you can see it rubbing. So where the ball joint boot heat shield is, let me get down here, right here, this lip, I'm gonna have to trim that off just a little bit, and then everything else clears though. Okay, so ran into a little bit of a problem, and it's just that I didn't have enough shims for the bracket to space this thing out. And then I did just get off the phone with Wilwood. They're sending me some, but it's not gonna be for a couple of days. My car needs to kind of be off the lift, so there's a local company called Fast Brakes. They're also a wholesaler for Wilwood. So Brian Hasty is the owner. I called him. He's on his way back to his shop here in a bit. Once he gets back to the shop, I'm gonna go pick up some more shims, but in a normal case, I'm not too sure why mine is taking so much shims. The guy on the phone said, you know, a little strange, but as long as there's thread engagement on the backside, or, you know, threads sticking out the backside, we're safe. So in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and button up the other side. So let's get this stuff taken apart. Let's get it Loctited and torqued, and we will be good to go for the brake line on this side. So with the rotors, to assemble them, you wanna lay the top hat face down, set your rings on it so the flat side of the rotor is in contact with the top hat. They give you all the hardware. Make sure you have the washers on them, because I just for test fitting purposes left the washer off on accident on one of these, and it was scraping the backside of the bolt on the caliper. So make sure you have your washers, then you got plenty of clearance. So you do again need an 8 mil 12-point socket like this guy, and then you need a inch-pound torque wrench. So unless you have a foot-pound one, that'll go low enough. So they wrote in the instructions 17.5 Newton meters. Otherwise, it is 155 inch-pounds, at which I already have this set up. So you need that, and then some red Loctite 271 high strength. So just gonna dab a little bit on each bolt, hand assemble it, and then torque it with the torque wrench. Alright, so these are all torqued to 155 inch-pounds. Next up, like I had mentioned earlier in the video, we need our safety wire and safety wire pliers. The diagram shown in the in the instruction shows you the aircraft way to do it, which is the more or less correct way. I've seen a few videos beforehand on doing it the right way, so I'm going to see if I can do it. Essentially, you're making a Z shape or a backwards S around it, and it's a little confusing, but once I figure it out, it should be easy. Shim situation has been corrected. So local guy, Fast Brakes, aka Brian Hasty, the owner, he is sponsoring the trip, and I just out of a whim called him to see if he had any of these in stock. He does. I don't know why I didn't think to call him in the first place, so I guess I'll have a second set when they show it from Wilwood. But yeah, so he gave me some shims, and while I was there, I mentioned to him, you know, what I was doing, you know, pad wise, and so he also hooked it up with, what are these? They are basically trap pads. So I forget exactly, the E67 if I had to read this part label correctly. So now we got some beefy track pads. He gave us some coating to get, you know, coat everything, and we got some Wilwood backing plates to help eliminate some of the squeaks. So, and then, you know, now that the rotors are mostly assembled, I'm going to finish doing the safety wire and then re-shim the calipers, and then I can just start torquing everything down.
Not too much, not too little. A little back on the threads since the threads stick out past the back a little bit. And it should be good to go. It's right on the mark, 42. Perfect. Nice. There we go. Easy
Doesn't
as
even
cake.
seem like a lot.
No. I see that they want you to do the red Loctite.
Yeah.
Also.
I mean, I know it's aluminum brackets, but 42 is not a whole lot.
No.
Chase's was like that on the AP racing setup too. Yeah, it was like pretty minimalistic. We're here, so we're looking pretty good. The sketchy part was they want you to. The kit shows you getting more than one fitting, but all it sent us was this 90 degree, and it has to be facing up for these lines to work. So I only did 2 wraps around with PTFE tape as per the instructions. If you do any more than that, you're gonna have a hard time rotating in there. It's gonna feel like it's gonna strip. So word of the wise. But other than that, the lines fit well. Everything's snugged up on this side. The only issue I'm having, and it might just be me, but these little rubber grommets, you have to cut them with like some side cutters or something to open them. But these brackets that they send you don't fit around those grommets. So with the line in it. So I don't know. I'm gonna mess with that some more. Maybe they do fit, but yeah, that's pretty much it. Once we're done here, we will get to bleeding it, and then we can start, then we can drive this thing around and see how they feel. On to the stage where we're about to bleed the brakes. Something I want to point out really quick on the fitting sizes for a lot of this hardware. So the caliper new bolts are still 17 millimeter like factory. The hard lines back there, the top one, actually both new lines are 11 mil. The new fitting that you use, the weird adapter piece like this guy, this is a standard size. I don't know what it is. I just was able to make an 18 wrench, hold it snug enough until it was good and tight. And then now these bleed screws, these upper ones, they are a 1/4 inch. Very, very inconvenient, especially since Wilwood doesn't give you the instructions with the sizes of the fittings and they're not marked. And, being a Japanese car, you expect it to be a Japanese size. So thankfully, I have a 1/4 inch guy here, but just so you guys know, standard sizes on most of this hardware on this brake setup, as well as the Allen head here too. I believe it's a 3/16 with an 11 mil nut on the back. All right, decided to bring this back in the next day. Got the brakes bled last night. They're feeling really good. The only issue I'm still having is more rubbing on the rotor or the dust shield. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna just pull the caliper off, pull the pads out, pull the rotor off, and by now, because I drove it probably 30 miles round trip since leaving last night, there should be good wear marks, but there's no instructions saying to trim the dust shield, but every other video I've seen, everybody just trims their dust shield regardless. But I'm just gonna go ahead and do that, so kind of make note of that. And then other than that, I'm gonna trim cut the video off here. But the brakes work great. Brakes are super solid, no leaks, which is awesome. And then obviously, they just look really good. I can't wait to get them on the track. Can't wait to take them to the Dragon. So if you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. If you're new to the channel, hopefully by now you've considered subscribing. I'm gonna go ahead and get these things trimmed up so they stop just making that little bit of rubbing noise. And in the meantime, Alex is back today. We're actually putting some spoon brakes on his car right here. So just a S2000 big brake kit kind of week. So anyways, guys, if you want to help support the channel further, I do have Velocity Race Fab t-shirts on the website, velocityracefab.com. And anyways, guys, yeah, thanks for spending some time out of your day here with me. So do what you love, forget about the rest. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
Correction, big brake kit.
One true big brake kit, one fake one.
Yeah, Chris got the real big brake kit. I get the fake one.
But you get the swag.